Welcome to the Raising Boys and Girls podcast. I'm Sissy Goff.
I'm David Thomas.
And I'm Melissa Trevathan.
And we're so glad you've set aside a few minutes to spend with us today. In each episode of this podcast, we'll share some of what we're learning in the work we do with kids and families on a daily basis at Daystar Counseling in Nashville, Tennessee. Our goal is to help you care for the kids in your life with a little more understanding, a little more practical help, and a whole lot of hope. So pull up a chair and join us on this journey from our little yellow house to yours. Shay Mooney is a singer-songwriter you probably know as one half of the country duo Dan and Shay, recipients of 3 Grammy Awards, among others. Shay is married to the lovely Hannah, who is a former Miss Arkansas, podcast host, and mother to their 3 adorable children. We had such a great conversation with them and are excited for you to get to listen in. Oh, well, y'all, so we got to meet you at the TSF Christmas party, which was so fun to meet y'all and learn that you were our neighbors at TSF, who we all are so grateful for and adore those people. They're so amazing.
They are wonderful.
Yes, and y'all both have done so many. I was so excited to learn more about y'all getting ready for this. And we would love to start with maybe you talking a little bit about your family and even how you two met.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your side of the story.
I know.
Hannah.
We actually, every time we get asked this, we're like, who wants to start? Because we both have a little bit a different version of the story.
Like
but
she wanted me. She saw me and she's like, "That's going to be my person." That's
Yeah.
what she wanted me immediately. It's definitely how it went. That's not how it went down at all.
No. No, I'll go back a little bit. We both grew up on farms in rural Arkansas, opposite sides of the state. We were not near each other, probably 4 hours away from each other.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say probably for the best.
No.
They always say you got to be careful when you're dating somebody in Arkansas. You just got to be careful.
All the jokes.
Like, you talking about cousin Hannah? Like, okay, guys.
Anyway, we both grew up on farms, and something that we talk about often is that our parents are still married after all these years, 30 plus years.
Wow.
And that's kind of unusual nowadays. And so we had similar upbringings in that it was small town, farm life, conservative, love for Jesus, church every Sunday night and Wednesday night,
Yes.
So our upbringings were similar in that. And I'm really thankful for that now because, again, I don't think you see a lot of married people who have even similar backgrounds.
Yes.
So it's a blessing.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, how we met was one of my friends, I guess it was kind of online, I guess you could say. Wasn't necessarily online, but I had a friend that had dated a girl. Long story short, I followed the Miss Arkansas account on Twitter, I think it was. And whenever that handle is passed down, whenever you win, you also get the Twitter handle. And one day I was just on Twitter and I was scrolling down and I said...
The picture changed.
Yeah, the picture changed. I was like, who is Hannah Billingsley? And so I thought she was gorgeous. And so, I didn't stalk her or anything like that, but I did follow her around for a couple of years. I didn't unfollow the account,
Sure.
But that's just kind of how it started. And I found out that we had a lot of mutual friends. And started commenting on her stuff. She had great Pyrenees.
Anytime I posted a dog picture, he was right in there in the comments talking about my dog. So that was smooth of you.
It's a good end. It wasn't
subtle.
creepy.
It was
Yeah.
subtle.
I wasn't going to post, I wasn't going to comment on anything else. The dog was safe. That was a good thing to comment on. So I was smart with it. I was letting the Lord lead,
And I asked him one day if he ever played in Arkansas, and that was on a Saturday night. And he said yes on Wednesday.
No way.
Wednesday in the town that I lived in. So again,
Okay, give me the towns too.
So I was in Fayetteville, Arkansas at the time.
Okay.
Yes, and he was playing at George's Majestic.
Oh, yes.
In Fayetteville, where I lived. And I always laugh because in all these years, it's been maybe 7 years now, 8 years you've played in Arkansas.
In 10 years of our career as a band, we've played Arkansas, I think, twice.
No way.
That was one of them.
That was one of the times.
wild.
So there you have God's hand because what are the what are the chances? But actually, it's funny because I was job searching at the time, fresh out of college, and I was so broke. And I was like, well, how much are tickets? And he said $30. And I said, I can't come. I'm not going to be there. And he said, how many do you need? And he put me down for 2 tickets. And so I went.
I don't remember even telling her that it was $30. I was probably confused why she was asking me. I said, I'm inviting you to the show. I would give up my whole life to have you at this show.
Well, I went with one of my girlfriends, and I never would have admitted to him that I thought his voice was amazing. But I did in the back of my mind. And we met after the show for the first time face to face. His entire family was there.
Oh, wow.
So
you met them all.
I met everyone.
She was unprepared for that.
I was
you could
very
tell she was
unprepared, and he put me on the spot, kind of in front of everyone, his family and his bandmates, and asked me to go be his date to the ACMs.
Oh, wow.
The following month, and I was very uninterested in dating. I had come out of some rough relationship, and I was dating Jesus, and so I said no. And then he followed up again, and I said, "I'll go as your friend."
And she had already opened the door, and I said, this is happening. And I knew that night. I remember my best friend, Benji, who's actually Asher, our oldest. He's the godfather of Asher. And I remember that night, I was about to walk her to her car, and she had just walked off. And I told Benji, I was like, I'm going to marry that girl. That was the first time we actually hung out, and I just knew. It was just that feeling. And they always say kind of, and you don't know that feeling until it happens to you. So
yes.
I knew from that first time, and it took me a while to convince her about it.
It took me a while.
But that's okay.
It wasn't his fault, though. I was kind of fighting God on it. But I like to say I felt God kicking me out of the nest, saying, it's time. And so begrudgingly, I let that go, and I knew immediately that he was the one. And so, yeah, that's how it went.
Oh, sis.
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of how it happened in a roundabout way. And
I love that
I do
story.
too.
and
Oh,
I'm
that's
still
so
here,
fun.
thankfully.
Yeah.
So
Just
much.
kept me around. It's been good.
And you mentioned your oldest, so tell us along the way when your amazing little people came into the equation.
Okay,
my
well,
goodness.
this is more of God's timing. We dated a year, and Mother's Day weekend, he asked my dad's blessing for my hand, and we had already looked at rings. And 8 weeks later, we found out we were pregnant. Wow. So when he did propose, we eloped, and he proposed, and we were walking around this beautiful stone chapel, ivy covered, with this huge European door, opens the doors, and my parents are there. His parents are there.
Wow.
My college pastor is there. And his sister and my best friend had chosen 3 dresses for me to choose from.
No.
And they had a floral arrangement, had brand new shoes, high heels for the dress, whatever dress I chose. And the photographers were there.
Wow.
And we got married.
Wow.
And I wouldn't have had it any other way because
what a
I'm not a
beautiful
planner.
story.
And
Yes.
I've never been the girl that just needed her wedding day to be, over the top. I just knew that I wanted God to send me the right man to marry, and he had. And so even though the timing of things was a little off, in retrospect, I know that was God, because I think I would have got cold feet about marrying someone who does what Shay does. And I really, really think that was God's way of saying, no, ma'am, you're in this, and he's your one, and this is your firstborn baby, and we're doing it.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
That is beautiful.
We ended up having a wedding, I think, a year later.
We did for everyone else.
And it was really for our family. And I think that both of us, not regret is the wrong word, but I think if we could go back, that first wedding that we had
It was the most special.
was so perfect. And I think the other wedding was for everybody else. And that was such a special.
And we named him
special
Asher
time.
because Asher means happy and blessed. And that's what he is. He's a joy. He brings a lot of joy to our lives and to the world.
Yeah. That was we were thrown into the world of parenthood, and it was I think as far as starting a marriage, we were probably thrown into the hardest we're throwing the gamut of things.
Yeah, they say the first years of marriage are the hardest, but if you add in that I moved here, left my job, left my family and my friends, we bought a home. He was on the road. He had over 250 shows the first year. That doesn't include travel days or days off. And then we had a newborn, and I had a C-section, and so I was here deep in postpartum.
Wow.
And he was gone, and so it was all the seasons wrapped up with one big bow.
Yes.
And our first few years were really, really hard.
Yeah.
But I know that those years were also preparatory for what God, had for us down the line. So I'm thankful for it now.
Yes. Wow.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
I know. And as you're telling your stories, Shay, we love to ask you just when did you know that music was going to be your life's work? And when did Dan and Shay get started?
Yeah, I think I've always known that music was going to be, a massive part of my life. Growing up, grew up in the church, and I have two older sisters. Erica is the oldest, and Gabby. And all of us did music in some capacity. Growing up in the Mooney household, it was, if you sang and played piano, that was like baseline. If you didn't do both of those things, you weren't probably in the family. It's like, who's that other guy? But it was definitely, I'm talking aunts and uncles, cousins.
Wow.
Like everyone did something.
They all play something. They all sing at church.
Wow.
And singing was just kind of, everyone did that. It was like everybody in my family did that. And so we traveled around and played in different churches, and just, we just loved to do that. And that was kind of part of our, being a part of our family, I guess. And always loved it. And I think when I was probably, I don't know, maybe 5, people started kind of saying like, they would say, the kids are really good. That my sisters have incredible voices as well. But I just remember there was kind of a point where it was like, I think that, they should really like try to do this professionally. And for fun, we came to Nashville when I was about 8, and we made our first like gospel album.
Wow.
And we recorded at this guy named Mark Mosley, which I'm pretty sure his studio is not too far away from here. And but it was just that whole Nashville and Arkansas, that connection was always from very young. I would be driving to Nashville and see a tour bus passing us, and just being completely awestruck and just being obsessed with that. That's probably George Strait on that bus,
Yes.
Probably wasn't at all. It probably was a crew bus.
Right.
But I just was so just enthralled with the idea of being able to travel around and to do music. It was just such a magical, thing for me. And so I never lost that all through, middle school. We came back to Nashville several times to kind of record for fun, and we made a couple albums, and it was never about like we didn't sell them, we like gave them away at churches. It was just like we just loved to do it. And all throughout middle school, I had a couple different bands. I did a couple like things for fun. And as I got older, I was starting to get into I think it was in 2009, I won a kind of singing competition thing that was with the church. It was called Fine Arts Festival.
Okay.
And it was a big deal back then because you got a full ride to go to school.
Wow.
And it was, it was a whole deal. And so I won for male vocal solo, and had a full ride to go to college. And so I was like, cool, I'll just go to school, and I was thinking that's kind of how it would go. And as I got into my senior year, I had hurt my back. And so I loved sports growing up. And, if you guys have never met me in person, I'm 6'5", and basketball was definitely on the table. But no, I was always, short growing up, and I loved sports, and I played basketball and baseball and all these things. But I knew that sports wasn't going to be the thing that, took me into career. I loved it, but it was definitely a thing that was going to quit, after high school for me. And so I was like, music is one of those things that I know I'm going to do forever. Didn't know what capacity that was going to be in. I never thought about like, oh, I'll be a famous, singer. It was just like, I told my dad when I was 8, I was like, I want to be a singer. I want to do this. And he was like, I know you will. I know you will. And the support from my family, my whole life has just been incredible. And I know a lot of people don't have that same journey, but my parents were truly unbelievable, in supporting us and things that we wanted to do. And all that to be said, when I got into my senior year, I kind of changed my mind about going to college, because I thought, well, I've been going to Nashville and I see kind of how this world works. And I feel like 4 years can do a lot of good in Nashville, but I feel like 4 years at college is kind of a waste of my time, if I'm being frank. I just thought if I go to school for engineering, I just feel like I want to be a singer. I know that if I don't go there and write and grind it out, I'm going to waste 4 years of my life trying to get a degree that holds no weight to the head of Sony or Warner. Whenever I walk in there, they're going to ask to hear songs, Right. And so I just kind of had that in the back of my head. And my sister, Gabby, ended up going to a 9-month ministry school in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And so when I decided, hey, I'm not going to college, my parents, again, were very supportive. I don't know how they did. They took that one on the chin. They didn't even really flinch. I feel like they're like, yeah, they've always been crazy. They'll figure it out. And so my sister and I ended up going up there with her and going to this 9-month ministry school. And, you could get your, basically to become a pastor was kind of the whole deal, but we kind of went, I wasn't trying to become a pastor, and I actually don't even think I finished the whole deal to get the actual pastoral license, but we finished up the 9 months, and for me it was kind of just a break from trying to figure out what I was going to do next, and it was an incredible time because it really was a refocus on God in my life, and what I was going to do next. I just didn't really know, and so fast forward a little bit, I got back after those 9 months in Pittsburgh, and I think I was there for the timeline here gets a little fuzzy because I think it was like about 3 months after being home for a while. We had met this backup dancer for T-Pain, the rapper, in Atlanta. And I just get this call one day, and I was in a movie theater, and this guy texted me and said, T-Pain wants to meet with you, wants to sign you. And he was like, can you FaceTime? And I was like, I'm in a movie theater. And I'm like, So I'm like, I ended up, long story short, I signed with T-Pain and lived in Atlanta for about a year and a half. And lived the craziest year and a half life. Definitely a stark difference from the ministry school that I had went to a few months prior. But it was a journey and such a growth for me. I think being thrown into the wolves, I guess you would say, at that, just as far as morality goes, there was just so many things going on around me that was just kind of like, here I am, this kid from in a small town, Arkansas, now living in a massive city, and just it wasn't normal. This wasn't just like, hey, I got signed by a musician. It was that world was completely different than even country music in Nashville. It was just
and that was probably the height of his.
Yeah,
2009, 2010.
A little bit. It was definitely, I mean, it was just crazy all the time. There was just always parties and things going on and experiencing things that I had never experienced in my whole life. Just a lot of craziness. And I just remember having this feeling like, okay, I've got to get to Nashville. I know that's where I want to end up. And I'd always loved country music, and that's kind of why he signed me. He wanted to get into country music, and he's an incredibly talented artist on all facets. And he was going through a tough time in his life, and has now, he's in a lot better spot too. So I'm happy for him. But he helped me get to Nashville, and that kind of opened the door there. And I was in Nashville for not that long, really, before I met Dan. It was a random thing. I was coming back and forth from Atlanta, and I was sleeping on my buddy's couch. I mean, I was flat broke at this point because I was getting paid, for being signed or whatever. But it was like, at the end of it, after I paid my manager at the time, the guy who found me, it was like 20%. And so I think I had probably roughly like $300 a month to survive on. And you're having to go out and take these people to lunch and do the whole deal and song and dance. And it was just a crazy time. And I remember getting invited to a house party. And I was like, all right, I'll go to this party. I was like, do they have snacks? So we ended up going over there with a mutual friend, and I met Dan that night. And it was 507 Morton Avenue was the house, and it was not a good house. It was falling apart. I mean, I think they were paying like maybe $200 a month for this house, and it showed. It was worth $200. And I think I broke into the house the first time because the door wouldn't open from the outside.
Wow.
You had to reach inside to open the door. And so they didn't have heat or air or anything like that. So they went to like the thrift store and hung these sheets in the living room to keep the heat in.
Wow.
Because it was cold. And it was December 7th when we met. And anyways, that's a whole other deal there. But we met that night, and we wrote the next day. And it was just this thing. Like, it was like the kind of music that I've been trying to write for a long time. And it just kind of clicked. And after that happened, it just really took off quickly. We had written all these songs and we were just playing them for our friends. And everyone was like, "Have you guys ever thought about, being a duo?" We hadn't thought of, we were just like, well, we just wrote these songs and we really like these songs. Like, well, you guys sound great together. And it was not nobody put us together. It was just, we had written 100 songs in a couple months and we were just happy to play them for people. And that's just kind of how it started. I think we met December 7th of 2012. And I think our first single was out, I want to say the summer of 2013.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was something like that.
I think that's what you sent to me.
Yeah.
For the first time.
Yeah, it was a song called 19 You and Me. And it was just, that was one of the first songs that we had written. And it was just, it was just kind of crazy how it all came together. It was definitely one of those meant to be things, And it's been a crazy ride since then. We were the new guys in town, and I remember Thomas Rhett's a good buddy of mine. I remember being with his dad. His dad was my first co-write here in Nashville at Blackbird, actually.
Oh, cool.
And I remember him telling us, like, "Hey, I got this, my son's actually doing music," and he was playing it for T-Pain. And us in the room, and I remember, I was like, "This guy's really good." And it's been fun to kind of start out as the new guys, and now all of our friends, building this life together. And it's just been really cool to see what happens, in Nashville. And now we're not the new guys. We're the old pros. And it's just been kind of crazy watching that whole thing unfold and getting to do life with people that you watch their careers from the beginning. And I don't know, that was a very long way around how Dan and Shay happened, but that was
so fun.
We're kind of doing
the
same
story.
thing.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Sissy, how tired are you of going to the grocery store?
Beyond tired.
I would rather have a cavity filled than go to the grocery store. It's quicker and honestly less painful.
Well, be careful what you wish for, David. And thanks to EveryPlate, we really don't need to go that often anymore. EveryPlate is 25% cheaper than grocery shopping with no hidden fees, so you can count on great value week after week. Plus, only pay for what you need with pre-portioned ingredients.
I love that. I choose EveryPlate over takeout to save money while still enjoying quick, satisfying meals. Their meals are 50% cheaper than your average fast casual meal. They're the easiest way to eat affordably. Have you had the citrus marinated steak tacos?
I have and loved them. EveryPlate provides plenty of delicious variety, so you'll never get stuck in a cooking rut. With 26 tasty and affordable recipes that change every week, including 15-minute or less dinners and oven-free recipes, it's easy to find something for every meal of the day. Plus, add even more delicious options to your order with up to 22 sides, lunches, snacks, desserts, and more.
Here is the other win. Make the sustainable choice this July. EveryPlate offers 100% of their delivery emissions, and their meals have a 31% lower carbon footprint on average than supermarket meals of the same portion. Plus, nearly all packaging materials are curbside recyclable in most areas in the U.S.
That's amazing. Get $1.49 per meal by going to everyplate.com/podcast and entering code 49RBG.
That's $1.49 per meal by going to everyplate.com/podcast and entering code 49RBG. That's up to $110 value, and that will buy a lot of tacos.
David, I recently saw you enjoying your new KiwiCo box.
I did. The box said 9 and up, and there was no cutoff age, so I clearly met the criteria. I made a remote-controlled snake robot, and I wanted to show it to Henry.
He would love that. He made speedy race cars at my house, and we had a ball racing those cars.
Could I bring over my remote-controlled snake robot and get in on that race?
You can. I've loved having KiwiCo projects for the boys at my house. They have developmentally appropriate projects for every child and interest level, from newborns to teens, or, in your case, boys in their 50s.
KiwiCo has developed over 2,000 projects in STEAM: science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. Simply select a crate or take their quiz to find the perfect match, pick a delivery plan, and watch your kids' excitement when they get their crates in the mail.
Each crate comes with multiple projects that will keep them busy for hours and off their screens. And that is a concern we hear from parents every day in our offices.
Yes, we do. I have loved encouraging parents to try KiwiCo. Redefine play with KiwiCo. Right now, get 50% off your first month. Crates start at just $14 per month, plus free shipping on any crate line at kiwico.com. Promo code RBG.
50% off your first month, plus free shipping at kiwico.com. Promo code RBG.
That's kiwico.com, promo code RBG.
Well, okay, I got to go back to Arkansas, though, for a minute.
Oh, yes.
Because David is profoundly outnumbered because Amanda's family's from Northwest Arkansas.
Oh, my goodness.
How about
Woo
that?
pig,
I know,
baby.
I think we need to call
Woo
the Hogs,
pig.
and I'm from Little Rock.
That's
And went
unbelievable.
to Fayetteville for college.
Unreal.
And so I've been to Georgia's, I don't know how many times.
Yes.
And in fact, the last time I was
Georgia's.
there for a Razorback game, we went to Georgia's.
You
So
did?
it's so fun
That
to
is
think
incredible.
about.
Georgia, we
Amazing.
took a picture, I think, last time we went to a game. We stopped by Georgia's and
We did.
got a little picture.
Just a little memory for.
Did they
for-
know that y'all met there?
That's a good question.
I feel like they would be so
they
proud.
might, I don't-
They'd be so proud.
We need to go tell them. Because that
George's
place
is on Dixon, which is like the Fayetteville Square,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
a street. It's so cute, and it goes straight up into the university.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yes.
And I remember the first time, this was before I met Hannah, but that was, George's was like, my dreams, people are like, oh, did you always, dream of playing Madison Square Garden? And I was like, absolutely not. Mine was like George's. And
That
I
is
remember like that was
awesome.
just like, that was the place that you
was the
played.
place.
And I
300
remember,
people max.
Oh, yeah.
maybe.
Probably, yeah.
what's 1,000? Okay, guys, it's a bigger
Okay.
joint now.
I
They
didn't know
expanded
that,
it. Yeah, they
1,000.
expanded
Wow.
it. But I remember opening, Dan and I were not even a band yet. We had written all these songs, and my lawyer had asked me to go do this showcase in Austin, Texas for South by Southwest. And I asked Dan, I was like, would you come down and play all these songs that we've written together? And on the way there, we got this offer to go open for Chris Allen. And we went and opened for Chris Allen at George's. And I
No.
thought we made it.
That
I was
is
like, we've made it. I was
awesome.
like, I probably can't even come home now because I'm so famous after playing this opening for Chris Allen and George's.
That's so
Yeah, it was
good.
exciting times. Yeah, I can't believe that we got so many
Ties to
Razorbacks.
Arkansas.
so many pig fans in
I
here.
know.
Yeah.
We
It's
had,
fantastic.
Do y'all know Ben Rector?
Yes,
Hillary?
love Ben.
Yeah, we interviewed him last week. Yeah, and we were saying we needed to somehow dub in somebody calling the Hogs at the end, so we might have to do it twice.
Oh, absolutely.
I feel like I'm not
You'd
going to
be
make
okay.
it out of the room without
Call
that
the
happening.
Oh,
I know.
absolutely.
There's
There's a
people in
clip
this room.
online. I recently, I say recently, it was probably 2 years ago. I called the Hogs at the Arkansas
Oh,
basketball
you did.
game.
Oh,
That's
I love
true.
it.
Somebody came up to me and was like, would you mind coming out and calling the Hogs? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I thought I was going to stand up in my seat, and they
Yeah.
took me out to half court, and I was like,
People were texting. They're like, I see Shades on the news. He's like calling the Hogs.
You're like, what
I
is
was like,
this?
what?
That's so funny.
It's good times. Our Hogs, they did good this year. Not to sidetrack too much, but I'm proud of
They
the.
did.
Yeah.
Eric Musselman has done a
Yes.
phenomenal job. All the
He sure
programs there are
has.
doing so good. Hunter Yurchek has done a great job.
Yeah.
Love that
that.
the tournament is here in Nashville.
I
'cause
Yeah,
that,
know.
feels
that makes
great.
It's
it
so fun.
We
Exciting.
went to a couple of the games, and then we're heartbroken
That's awesome. I
whenever
know.
we got out. But they did good. They, did great.
good. I know.
Next
Well,
year we're coming.
well, that's right.
That's right. Next year's
Definitely.
our year.
Yeah. Hannah, I did not know when I talked to you about Arkansas for so long at that party that you were Miss Arkansas.
I was.
That's so
I was.
fun.
I was. It was the last pageant I told myself I was ever going to do. And so I really went into it just being like, okay, I'm done after this. I've, on to the next life thing.
Yes.
And I just, God's hand is all over.
Yeah,
all
on
kinds
to the
of
next
stuff.
life thing.
Yes,
It was- yes.
and no one was more shocked than I was when I won. I didn't even tell anyone I was in it. Yeah, I competed in the America system for quite some time, and finally, actually, this is a funny but terrible story. I had a woman come up to me after one of the pageants, and she said, and there are two different pageant systems, America and USA, and
Okay.
America required talent, and it's the predominant score. Like that's the most you can score is in the talent portion.
Okay.
And I just did not have a strong entertaining talent. I played all the sports growing up, and I'm an artist, and I love photography, but there was nothing I could do on stage for 90 30 seconds that would be considered of entertainment value, and I don't have a rhythmic bone in my body, so there's no way I was going to dance.
I don't know, her dancing's pretty entertaining. It's pretty entertaining.
The funny part is I sang for my talent, and so, the great irony that I marry a singer. I used to beg God for a voice, and he said, I'll give you a singing husband instead. But no, I had a woman come up to me after a pageant, and she said, honey, you are just beautiful. You should really consider USA because they don't require talent.
Wow. Wow.
And you're like a 20-year-old and you're just like, okay. By a grown woman, it's kind of a backhanded compliment.
I don't know how you can even include the word compliment.
Yeah, it was a bless your heart moment.
It was a bless your heart moment. And I really put in a lot of time. I grew up a tomboy. Pageants were not something that I anticipated doing. I got talked into doing my first pageant my freshman year of college. And I knew I had a dress from homecoming. And I thought, well, if I can win scholarship money, then that's great. The worst they can do is say no. It's what my mom always tells me. So I did it. But I ended up putting in a lot of time doing interview coaching and swimsuit prep and really, really polishing up a lot of life skills. But there was no way I could polish up my voice to be a professional level singer. So I thought, okay, after a few years, I knew I wasn't going to do anything in that system, and I switched over. It was kind of like, my Hail Mary, and I was like, if nothing happens, that's fine, because I know that I put in the work, and I switched over, and I really enjoyed that weekend and competing and had no expectation for it, really.
Wow.
And I guess it showed because they called my name, and I went to congratulate the girl in front of me because I couldn't hear, and I just knew that she had won. She actually switched over too, so we knew each other from that system. And then she congratulated me, and I was just blown away. And that kind of changed everything. And again, that's kind of how he noticed me for the first time. Not that I cared because I wasn't interested, but
she likes to mention that. No, she likes to hold that against me.
It wasn't you specifically. I don't want you.
But
to
that's
kind of
crazy that if looking back on all the things that had to happen, you can do this with so many things, but it's just crazy that if she wouldn't have won Miss Arkansas, we would have never met. I can say that with pretty good certainty. It's kind of crazy looking back on the things in your life that. If this never happened, that you wouldn't have been there, and you can really go down the rabbit hole. And it's
so. Thank you to that woman who told me to switch over.
Yes. That's true. God used her unkindness.
Yes, it's all the bad, and it's funny to look back. And sometimes the bad things, especially the bad things in our lives, are really that kind of turning point.
Is God's protection.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just kind
I've
of
never heard that.
going down that maze of a dead end and making you turn the other direction. That just really. It's just wild to be here now and to look back on all the little things that one little thing would have completely changed the trajectory and, of your life.
Yeah,
every little thing that had to happen, and it's almost like there's somebody watching out for us.
I mean, you'd almost think
that it was it happened for a reason.
Well, it's funny to think about you going from sports and being in a more. That's not the world of boys; it's the world of girls and boys.
No, it is.
But then totally to.
Pageants.
This female, and then now to living in a full household of boys.
Yes.
And so would love to hear what that's like for you and what encouragement you would give to young moms of young kids.
Sure. I have a lot of mistakes that I could share that we could learn from, but no, it feels right that I'm in a household full of boys because, like I said, I was a tomboy growing up, barefoot. The only rule was come in when the sun goes down.
Wow.
We didn't even have a street lamp. So that was it. And I had cattle, and I was always in the creeks and the ponds, and I played basketball and softball. So it kind of feels right that I'm in a sporty house. I never liked pink or bows. And at this point, if we had a girl, I don't know what I would do with her. The advice that I think that I would give, and I can say this with a genuine heart because I'm back in the throes of having a newborn at home.
Yes.
And our oldest is now 6. And so as much as people tell you that the days are long and the years are short, I can see it so much more clearly now because we have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old and a newborn, and it's like I can see the stages right in front of my face.
Yes.
And so in a weird way, it's almost not as hard to get up at night and to have weeks and weeks of just sleeplessness and that weary tiredness that you live through. And in the beginning, you kind of wish it away, but I can look at my 6-year-old and go, that was yesterday.
Yes.
And it couldn't be more true.
Yeah.
That time flies by.
Yes.
So as much as you can, be in the moments and don't wish them away, because
I love that.
I love that.
they're
too.
short.
Such a great reminder.
I love that too.
Thank you.
Shay, would love to ask you, just having had all the unbelievable opportunities you've had, is there a favorite moment or a few favorite moments in your career?
There's definitely some highlights. I mean, as far as, professionally and things that, everyone else kind of holds highly, I think that as far as all the awards that we've had the chance to be a part of, I would say the Grammys was a really cool one. And not necessarily just for, us winning a Grammy. It was really, there was a moment that I had, I know this is not necessarily the question, but it was a big turning point for me in my, thinking as far as, how I live my life. I think it was our second or third, I can't remember which one it was, but it was a moment over COVID, whenever I just had this very God moment. And I had put up these, I think I had one of them sitting up on our mantle. And I remember it was like right after we had won one, and Asher was running by, and I was in the living room, and he was running by, and I was kind of in this self-pity, moment, because we had just started our big, first big headlining arena tour, and we started out, we did 2 shows at Bridgestone, and then the world shut down, and I was just kind of in this place where I was just feeling sorry for myself. And
We had a newborn at home.
we had a newborn. We had Ames was born. Our middle child was born 2 weeks before that show, and I was having panic attacks. I was just in a really dark place, and it kind of started before that, before COVID even hit. COVID was just the cherry on top. I was just kind of in this place where I was just very stressed, and a lot of it had to do with just my eating habits, and I was just I was unhealthy physically, mentally, everything. But I had this moment where he ran by and he was like, "Daddy, don't get my tickles." And it was just like, it happened in this really quick moment, because I was looking at this Grammy and watching him fly by. And I just remember thinking, I am so glad that is not what I was chasing after. Because now that it was kind of ripped out from under me, it was just, all right, now I don't know if I'm ever going to do music again. That's what we were all thinking. Like, I don't know if this is ever coming back.
Yeah.
But I just had this moment of clarity of thanking God that was not what I was chasing after, because those things are never going to, first of all, it can't talk to me. It can't love me. It can't love me back. And it was just this overbearing, just wisdom bomb of no matter how many things that you chase, whether it's, having all these awards or Grammys or sold out shows, all these things are great. But if that's all you're chasing, you have nothing. And I just remember having that feeling of like, man, I have everything that I could ever possibly need and these 2 little boys and my wonderful wife, and just having that moment of clarity, like, man, thank God that wasn't what I was chasing, because if it was, I would be so empty. And even though I was going through a really tough time, that was kind of like the first step to me being like, okay, I am now reminded that I get to do music. I love it. I love music so much. It's very fulfilling, but it's not all that this life is about. I'm really good at doing music, but I get to have a family, and it was just it was an incredibly humbling moment for me. And it took me a while to kind of, for that lesson to sink in and kind of come to fruition, I guess, because you learn a lesson sometimes, and sometimes it takes a minute for it to sink in and for you to act on those things. And I started at that moment, but really, I think in the last year and a half, God's taken me on this journey that has just completely changed my life. And that's kind of been the best thing that's happened to me, and I guess in my whole career, is I got healthy, and it started out physically. I'd lost like 60 pounds, and it changed the way that I became was a father and a husband, and it changed everything for me. And I'll give this quote, and I can't remember who said this, but I wish that I would have heard this a long time ago, because it just kind of stopped me in my tracks. And I had read this when I was kind of already down the rabbit hole of health and being like, okay, I'm going to do this for my kids and for my wife. But I read, you can die for your kids, and I don't doubt that you would die for your kids. Said, but would you live for them? You'd only have to die once, but you have to live every day. And I was just like, it just hit me like a ton of bricks, because it's easy as parents, you get in this thing, and to do the easy thing, or to do the hard thing once quickly is, for parents, it's just of course you would do that. Of course you would do that. But waking up every day and getting up early and putting your health first and doing all these things every day that are hard, and taking the time to play with your kids and sitting down when you don't really want to, and playing games that are so dumb, that are like, they're not even real games. Yeah. And I'm like, this is, why do you even enjoy this? But doing those things that don't feel like they're productive even for your kids, but you're doing it with your kids. And, all of that stuff really matters. And I don't know, I just have been on this journey that has completely changed my life and changed my spiritual walk with God, and it's just changed everything for me. And I know that this all stemmed from one question of what is my favorite accomplishment, but I think that probably is getting to this place has been my greatest achievement by far.
Thank you for that.
Yes, love hearing that so much. And of course, we think everybody should download all of your music. It's amazing as well.
Thank you very much.
And Hannah, your podcast. We love your podcast, Unexpected with Hannah Love. And I'm going to read this because I love this statement that you talk about the events in our lives that lead us to where we are, and how the unexpected moments are the very ones God uses in the biggest ways.
Yes.
So what have you enjoyed most about the podcast, and what do you hope folks take away from it as they're listening?
So that was a whole God story in and of itself. Shay is the guy that I say is in the spotlight, and I've always said that I'm in his sidelight, that I didn't choose this life, but I choose him, and God made him to do this. And so for a few years, I struggled with what I was doing here, and why, and what I could be doing, because I knew that for whatever reason, like, I wanted to point up to God, and I wanted to give encouragement and hope to other people once I kind of came out of that hole myself, because I knew if I needed it and I felt that way, then so many others needed that, especially young mothers and young women just who have gone through things. And I thought that's what I would have wanted. And so I never thought about doing a podcast until God put it on my heart pretty specifically. And I thought, that's not me. I'm more of a behind the scenes kind of person. And then I actually had a therapy session, and I was sharing about it, and she said, why don't you talk to Annie? And I said, who is Annie? She said, Annie. Annie F. Downs, the one and only. And I knew of Annie, but I thought, why would I talk to her? And she said, well, she has a network. So I thought, well, that's a long shot, and I don't know anything about this. God literally gave me the name and the theme. Wow. And he showed me that it's all through the Bible. It's timeless. Yes. That there is not a single person you'll ever meet whose story goes the way they thought it was going to go.
Right. Not the truth. Yes.
There will be something unexpected in every person's life. Yes. And if you let it, God can work in those unexpected areas and turn it for the good. Yes. And it may be even that God did that unexpected thing to turn you to the life that he's calling you towards. So I knew that to be universal truth, and I knew it to be a biblical truth. Yes. And I thought for sure that it probably already existed, and I looked it up, and of course it didn't, because God told me to do it. So I reached out to Annie. I explained what was on my heart, and she said, come in, let's talk. I went in thinking it would just be, a quick little conversation with Annie. It was her whole team. Wow. And it was like I was pitching. There were a whole room full of people at a table. And I just told them, look, I'm not here for the money. I'm not here for anything other than obedience, because I felt like God said that I needed to do this, and this is it. And so they were so excited, and they championed me. As you know, they are just so wonderful. They are wonderful. And that's how the podcast came to be, Unexpected with Hannah Love. And A lot of
That's
devotional style
awesome.
stories,
Yes.
pulling from people in the Bible, and making them relatable to today. And then I
Yes.
pull in interviews of people along the way of their unexpected and just sharing encouragements from their own lives.
The podcast
So
was the most
cool.
unexpected thing
Yes.
for me because knowing my wife, she is not one to want to do any public speaking or anything like that. And so I knew that was a God thing whenever she was like, I think I'm supposed to do this podcast. And I was like, yeah, you probably are. If you are even saying that out loud.
Yes.
Yeah, you know it's God if it's out of your comfort zone.
Great point. Great point.
Well, we speak for a lot of folks in saying thank you for being faithful to that.
Yes.
Thank you. And would love to ask you both next. Shay, you have written and recorded unbelievable amount of songs, and would love to ask you both, do you have a favorite and why?
Oh, it's tough because much like your children, that's kind of what the creation of songs are. You go through these kind of cycles of, they're all kind of your children. But I'd say if I had to pick a couple, there is a song that we had written right before we had Asher, and it was called "When I Pray for You," and it was they actually used it, I think, for the movie The Shack. I think was what the song had been taken for, but we wrote it before we ever knew that, and that song was, you would play that for your belly.
I
You'd
did. I
put up
played it for
speakers
Asher
and
in my belly.
that was Asher's song, and the lyrics to it were always just very, very special to us. And I think the verse was, "I talked to God about you, and I ain't even met you yet. Everybody's waiting on you here." And it was just the story of, and it was with the crazy timing with us, having Asher, at a time, especially growing up in rural Arkansas, it was a tough thing, getting pregnant before we were married. But I knew she was the one. I'd already asked her dad if I could marry her. It was one of those things that was just a really tough thing. And that moment was kind of coming out in that song was just always very, very
We wanted Asher
special.
to know that even though it wasn't our timing and we didn't plan him, God planned him, and that he was right on time, and he was precious and wanted and loved.
Yeah. He might have been unexpected, but
That's right.
He was
That's what I was
unexpected.
thinking.
it's actually your podcast, just the story of
That's
Asher.
right. That's right.
Beautiful.
But yeah, that song's very special. And there is a song that is, I actually wrote with Benji, the guy that I said I was going to marry Hannah. The night that I met her, we wrote a song that was just a two-way. And we were sitting down one day, and he actually had this title called "My Side of the Fence." And it's one of my favorite songs we've ever done. It was on a couple records ago. And coincidentally, I think that's going to be the name. I want to do a podcast, and I'd had this idea for a long time, and I'd never ever wanted to do a podcast. But since being kind of on this journey, I just felt like it would be a good timing to help some people. And I feel like "My Side of the Fence," it was really just, the song is about not looking elsewhere, not looking at your neighbor's yard, kind of appreciating what you have. And and I have the most beautiful woman on planet Earth, and there's no reason to look elsewhere, for the things that I need. And
It's
the song
actually
was
pretty
about
sweet. I was a few months postpartum when he wrote that one, and so he came home and played it for me. And I always say I'm kind of the ultimate litmus test, because if I cry, we know it's going to be good. I'm not a crier at all, and he played that for me that day, and I just wept. So it was special to me, and even though it's not a big one on any of their, albums, I think it's one of their most requested.
Yeah, it's definitely one of our biggest songs. It never went to radio or anything, but people love that. And it was just a special thing for us, to have that song become popular and be able to do it at our shows. And I got to sing it actually at Bridgestone before the world shut down. I got to sing that song with Asher on my lap. I actually sang that one, and when I Pray for You, got to sing it in the middle of Bridgestone Arena with Hannah and Asher there with me. So that was a special moment. But
That's awesome.
yeah, I'd say those two songs are very special. And "My Side of the Fence," that'll be the name of my podcast. That'll be
Wow.
I can't
coming
wait.
out in the next 12 years.
Wow.
We'll see when it happens. But it's there's so many songs. Speechless, we wrote about Hannah and Abby, our wives, Dan and I's wives. And yeah, there's so many songs. It's hard because they they take on new lives of their own. And now 10 years later that from writing those songs, sometimes they change their meaning, not necessarily their meaning, but I guess their application to what you're going through at the time. And there's a lot of songs like that we've written.
That's the magic of songs, isn't it?
That's so true.
Yeah. But it's just crazy to see where music has taken us, with our career of just getting to do something that we just love so much. It's awesome to make a living out of it, but to get to do something and Dan has truly become one of my best friends, and getting to do that with somebody that you respect and love and get to kind of, do life with is just really a unique thing. And that's what's cool about being in a duo. We always said, the lows aren't as low and the highs are even higher. It's just like a marriage. I mean, with, going through life with somebody, going through alone is no fun. And which unfortunately that's what a lot of, especially I speak to male country artists because that's what I know, but that's a tough, thing when you don't have someone, and oftentimes you do have that other person in your life, and a lot of times they're not the right person to have, and can very quickly, derail an artist's career in a lot of negative ways. So I'm thankful to have that in my life. So Hannah scratched my leg. I'm going on too long. She said, "Shut up."
Yeah, you can tell we needed to get our word quoted today. We've been in the house with the boys this morning.
Such great things to say.
Yes.
So thinking about parenting, when y'all look back on the early years of parenting, what is something you would say you worried about? This season of our podcast is called Raising Emotionally Strong and Worry-Free Kids.
Yes.
What's something you worried about that you wish you hadn't?
I'd say everything.
Everything, truly. I got this piece of advice at one of my baby showers before I had Asher. And especially now with my third, I'm like, gosh, it is the truth. And I think with your first, you're so worried about everything that you're hyper vigilant to make sure that the house is tidy and that their fingers are clean and that everything is so. And part of that's probably because there's not a lot we can control at that point, but we can control cleaning or that type of thing. But now with our third, you just got to let the messes ride, and you just have to let them play and be in the moment, and don't tell them to pick up the thing right after they get the thing out, and just try to let it go a little bit. You can pick up before you go to bed if that makes you feel better. But again, the days are long and the years are short, and the messes can wait. But being in the moment, you're not going to be able to get all those back. So that is probably a piece of advice that I think your mom gave me actually is the messes can wait.
Yes, I love that. Let the messes ride. Yeah, yes.
Let it ride.
Such a good reminder.
I like that. That's good, babe.
I hope people remember that when they walk into our house.
We're really just kind of...
There's a reason I say that.
Just remember, we let the messes ride. We've been letting them ride quite a bit.
Well, and building on that, what would the two of you say are some things that you think help your boys become more emotionally strong and worry-free?
We've done a lot of work on ourselves, just, counseling. And I know that doesn't seem beneficial to your kids, but our ceiling is their floor. And so the work that we put in our marriage goes a long way in how healthy we can be in parenting. So that first and foremost, but then I would also say we try to apologize to our kids when we've messed up. I think that's really important that they see that we mess up too, and talking to them every day about God and how He loves them, and reminding them whose they are. And Asher is a big question asker, and I'm always honest with him. And I think I heard somewhere that maybe it was you guys that the child typically asks the question when they are at an age where they can understand. And so when he asks, I tell him. And that child has a memory like an elephant, and he doesn't forget. So if he asks, you better get it right. And I used to stress about him asking other grown-ups questions because they might ease around the truth a little bit, but he's going to remember. So I'm like, just tell him in love, and he gets it. And so, just letting them know that we mess up that people mess up, grown-ups mess up, and that we're sorry too.
That. Yes.
And that there's grace, and God gives us grace. I think that's really important to let them know that there's room for mistakes.
Yeah. And just loving, well. And I think it's really tough sometimes even. I mean, especially me, I had to work on this more than Hannah did, but just being patient and, you try to, especially as a guy, you try to kind of, and being the dad of 3 boys, a lot of times, growing up, we're kind of taught this, like, okay, when you get hurt, like, you're fine, you're good, you're good. And I found, especially, with Asher, that, the more that in the moment, if I try to just be like, oh, you're fine, you're good, then it's if it, rather than just being like, hey, buddy, just loving on him and be like, it's okay, man. It's okay. And it's okay to feel those things. Because I feel like as guys, oftentimes we're taught and conditioned to just be like, you're too tough for this. You don't need to feel pain, And I don't think it helps, conditioning ourselves to just be like, you're fine, you're good. Get yourself up off the ground, you're fine. It doesn't necessarily help comfort them. And in the long run, it doesn't make them any tougher. It makes them kind of conditioned to feel bad for even feeling a certain way. And I've tried to work on that of just loving on the boys when they get hurt. And I don't always do it perfectly. And I think that's something for parents that we have to remember, that we have to have grace with ourselves as well. We're not always going to get it right, but I know that at the end of the night, if you love well and you're telling your kids and you're holding them tight and you tell them that you love them and you're doing the things, if you can do that one thing right and just love them and hold them, in that 10 minutes of bedtime, just, get all your apologies out for sorry, daddy was a little short today, but I love you so much. And I am so proud to be your dad. And you must be so proud of yourself, and just kind of loving them well.
We usually tickle before bed.
Yeah,
if
tickle's a good time.
you can end bedtime, no matter how bad the day is, if you can end on a laughing note, I feel like that's what they'll hang on to.
So good, yes.
Yeah. We see it like the good and the bad. You learn lessons as parents, but there's sometimes when I go to bed and I'm just like, I was so tired and I was in such a hurry to get them in bed that I feel like I dropped the ball tonight. But every time I've done that, but I've made them laugh before bed, or got in there with them and just laid down and just told them that I loved them. It's always the next day. They're so forgiving.
They're resilient.
Children are. They're so resilient and incredible. And it's you do have to have some grace on yourself, because it's tough. And I think as long as we remind our kids that, just like Hannah said earlier, if we also make mistakes, and apologizing for those mistakes, and realizing that, hey, mom and daddy are not perfect people. All of us, mom and daddy, and all of you guys are trying to be better. God is the only perfect one around here, and we're all trying to become more like Jesus, and we're definitely not going to get it right all the time. And I think that becomes more of a, rather than looking to your parents as completely the answer, looking more at your parents and being like, all right, they're doing the best I can, and I can do what they're doing, and becoming more of an encouragement rather than just the standard. Like, don't look at me just as the standard. Like, I want to face my kids to Jesus. That needs to be the standard, not us, because we're just human. And obviously that's getting older. You look at your parents, and my parents did such a great job, and yours did too. And there's a different kind of respect and, and guidance that you search for, from your parents. But we definitely want to point our kids to God.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even you saying that about it's easy to fall into bed and feel like, the things I did wrong. I mean, I think we have talked, both of us, about how in all these years of counseling kids and families, we feel like parents feel not only more weary than ever before, but more like failures than ever before.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to get really stuck in that and be really worried. And we talk about the importance of arming ourselves with truth. And would love to hear a truth that you two go back to, each of you, that helps you not worry as much, not feel as defeated, just something that you cling to in those times. And you've said a lot already.
Something, and this could be a piece of advice too that I give, something that I have heard and that I kind of wish that someone had told me a long time ago, and that I cling to now, is remembering that God gave us these babies specifically, that he chose us, and he chose those children, and he placed us together. And he's giving us the great, responsibility and privilege of being the stewards of their little lives. And he chose us for it. Mm-hmm. He chose me to be Asher, Ames, and Abram's mama. And if he did that, then he did that knowing that I was equipped to take care of those needs, and that Shay and I were the ones who could steward the gifts that he'd placed in them, and that we would do that well. And so just remembering that, like, God doesn't make mistakes.
Right.
And that he picked us, and he picked our babies, and he put us together. There's just something in that gives me a lot of reassurance that, like, I might have messed up, but God knew I would. Yeah. And he still thinks that I was the one to take care of these guys.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really good. And the Bible says, worrying has never added a day or a second, onto our life. And I cling to that a lot because I feel like I worry about, silly things. I know we all do. But it's been really exciting to be able to kind of see just your kids start to grow up with the truths that you have told them, over and over again, like Jesus loves you and all these things. And
they
watching
preach to
that,
me sometimes.
They start to, they start to tell you some of the things that, you taught them. And even just in the way that they love people of, like, we always randomly we would always tell them, like, hey, I love you. I'm so proud of you and all these things. And now every once in a while they'll just be like, out of nowhere, just like, you're the greatest dad. How does Ames say it? He says it the funniest. He said,
you're the best daddy in the world ever.
Yeah, you're the best daddy in the world ever. And they'll say these little things are just like little pick-me-ups, and it's just like they do that because we do that to them. And it reminds us, and it's kind of scary sometimes because it's like that happens also if I'm short and I get annoyed with Hannah and I say something out loud, or she, probably on the other end of that, she's, hollering at me for something dumb that I did. But all those things that, our kids are watching us at all times, which can be a daunting thing, because that is, they learn by what they see, which is why it is so important to truly focus, on not just your children, but you do need to take care of your marriage. You do need date nights or some time alone. Right now with newborn, date nights aren't necessarily on the table all the time. But just those things, loving each other well is loving your kids well. And I think that's really important for them to be able to see that. And I mean, even just now, as we've gotten older, both of our parents, I feel like watching their marriage and the fact that they're still together and not saying that has to happen for you to have a good relationship with your parents or to have a good view of what that's supposed to look like. But for us, that was huge. Our parents still being together and working through troubles and in coming into situations where a lot of parents, and a lot of families would have split up and that would have happened. Watching that for me and watching my parents go through those struggles and then not quickly, but over time, fixing those things and rectifying those situations and working on it. And knowing that marriage is hard, but what you get out of that is now what I see with my parents. And I see that, all the hard work that they put in, even all their struggles, that has turned into this beautifully complex, incredible love that they have for each other. And that's what I want, and that's what we want for, ourselves, and that's what we want for our kids. And I think that, like Hannah said, your ceiling is your children's floor. And I've watched that play out over the course of my life with my parents. And it's just been incredible. So
that's so cool.
I think we strayed a little from the question.
Well, I don't even remember what the question was.
I love what you
it's
just
way
said.
too early to
So
think about these things
He's
in a
just
straight line.
He's just
So
doling out
rich.
wisdom today.
You all, it's been so rich.
Yes, it has, for sure.
And we like to end with something fun and food related.
Okay.
So we got a
We
two-part
like it.
question for you. Part one is queso or guac. And part two is what's your favorite taco?
I mean, now we're getting into the
I know.
nitty gritty
Yes, we are.
live
We
questions.
sure are.
Important questions.
I would have to say, well, unfortunately, I haven't eaten tacos in a while, but my favorite taco, to answer the taco one first, because before I forget the name of it, it is the hot chicken taco at Poncho and Lefty's.
Yes.
Yes.
It's one of the greatest things.
The
And they
original
changed
recipe.
the
Last week.
recipe at some point, and I actually
He
I messaged them
because
I was
change it back.
furious. It was so much better before they changed the recipe, and I've really struggled with it. I've been praying about it, but hopefully they'll change the recipe back.
He said, "Did you get a new chef?" And they said, "No, we just changed the recipe." And he said, "Do you think maybe you
You change it back? But
We
that's
love
the
someone
greatest.
who's that passionate.
You gotta be passionate about your tacos. That was the greatest taco that I'd ever had on planet
very
Earth.
good
But
taco.
I think any taco at Bar Taco is pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
too.
bar tacos, awesome.
Amen.
And I would have to say guacamole with queso. Those two together is the ultimate
Now,
combo.
I've never met a queso I don't love, but guacamole is kind of like it for me. Although I'm a huge salsa gal too.
Yeah, queso would be what I would go with.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, that one's for free, guys. You can have that one
Let's trademark it
for
okay?
free. That's right. Brought to you by Unexpected.
Oh, y'all, thank you. Thank you for sharing truth and so much wisdom in your hearts. And
Thanks for letting us
so nice to
ramble.
sit with
Yeah, thank you for having us.
We're still trying to figure out.
We had our
being a
coffee
parent.
on the way, so we were just hitting all the high points.
Yeah, we haven't started yet, right? We're gonna get into this.
Okay, where can people find both of you?
I'm on Instagram, and this might be a little confusing. My handle is still Hannah Billingsley, which is my maiden name. It took me forever to change my name, and then the handle Hannah Mooney was taken, and so there we have. We're just still Hannah Billingsley. But
I just call it holding on to your roots. Yeah,
but I love him, and my name is Mooney, and you can find my podcast anywhere that podcasts are found.
Okay.
There's a link there on my bio.
Great.
go. And my Instagram handle is Shay Mooney,
Okay.
and that's it. You can find me. I don't know where.
All
I
over
think
the
that's just
place.
all over the place. Dan and Shay, come see us on the road. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna be out a lot next year. So
Yeah.
now that it's a good time to get into a good place with everything because I'm gonna be gone a lot next year. So I gotta
check
make sure
back in
she'll
next year.
Yeah, check back in next year.
We might
a
have
different
different advice.
conversation.
Yeah, have some different advice. Yeah.
Y'all, thank you.
Hey, thank you
Thank you
guys
for
so much.
having us.
Thank y'all for
So
what
much.
you do, by the way. Y'all are
Yes.
incredible and such an encouragement to Hannah and I.
This community is a better place because of what you people do. And also, before you even came to the network, I was plugging you guys on episodes. We did a parenting episode, and me and one of my girlfriends were like, we listen to their books on Audible, and it's just the resources that you've put together and the books that you've written, and the fact that you have a podcast now and it's just so accessible. I think that's wonderful for so many families.
Thank you. Thank you.
both. Thank
Yeah,
you.
We're so grateful. It's our joy to bring the experience and insight we gain through our work beyond the walls of the Daystar House.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please share it with your friends. And don't forget to click the follow button in your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. To learn more about our parenting resources or to see if we're coming to a city near you, visit our website at raisingboysandgirls.com.
Join us next time for more help and hope as you continue your journey of raising boys and girls.